Alright, you and I are about to watch a guy with a basic skill break the entire system. With one move, he instantly took command of 20 creatures and forced them to fight for him. Even scarier, every kill boosted his own stats. Seeing this, the man could not help but smile. As long as he kept hunting monsters, he could not even imagine how far his strength would grow. This man was named Rigoa. To test his brand new abilities, he headed straight for the central portal of the city. He saw plenty of beginners nearby, all looking for teammates to enter the dungeon with. While Rigoa was scouting the area, a random player walked up and asked him to join their party. Rigoa simply replied that a low-level dungeon like this does not need a party. The guy just laughed awkwardly and had to head back to his group. Watching Rigoa walk away, the man muttered, "He looks like a total beginner. Is he really going to be okay alone?" The girl just scoffed. "Brother, stop worrying about him." Rigoa just chuckled. The ancient garden was only 1-star difficulty, but the map was absolutely massive. As Rigoa pushed forward, he started wondering where all the monsters were hiding. Right then, hiding in the tall grass nearby, a monster was gripping a long sword. Now pay attention, because this ambush is about to go horribly wrong for the goblin. Suddenly, another monster launched a sneak attack from behind him at incredible speed. It aimed for a one-hit kill, but Rigoa just shifted his body and easily dodged it. In the instant he dodged, he reached back and snatched the goblin from behind. "You can be my first test subject. White Knight activate." Undead magic transformed into holy energy. Once the conversion was done, Rigoa immediately cast another holy spell. Life Drain. The goblin began withering away instantly. Rigoa was shocked that holy magic worked this fast. He switched back to undead magic to continue absorbing, feeling his own body getting stronger. System notification. You have successfully absorbed the pixie's life force. Base attributes increased. Strength and agility both went up by 0.1. You and I both know where this is going. If he keeps killing monsters, his attributes will skyrocket forever. Are you surprised by your skill? This attribute growth is my gift to you. Rigoa never expected the skill to be this broken. Rise. Fight for me. As necromantic summoning activated, the dead goblin suddenly climbed back onto its feet. Attributes increased by 97%. Zombie goblin type. Now that he had a summon, Rigoa could finally take things a little easier. From here on, it was time for the real hunt. Right at that moment, several more goblins emerged from the forest nearby. Rigoa was already thinking about testing out his new summon's combat power. Perfect timing. In an instant, the undead goblin charged forward. No technique here. It just bit down and refused to let go. The other goblins froze, unable to understand why their own comrade was attacking them. Suddenly, one goblin stabbed its blade straight through the undead goblin's heart. But the undead goblin was already a creature of the night. Even if it was struck in a fatal spot, it was still extremely hard to kill. Using the chaos, Rigoa grabbed another one. These were all walking attribute points. He wouldn't let them escape. Soon, the drained goblin was tossed aside. Behind him, his summon killed the last monster. He could absorb from living targets. But could he also take stats from those who were already dead? Rigoa's eyes lit up with excitement. It worked on corpses too. Time to speed up. Trust me, you and I are about to see why a necromancer is so terrifying once they get that first kill. Based on his current power, Rigoa could perfectly control 20 summons at once. Rigoa spoke softly. Necromantic summoning. The dead goblins all rose up. His summons were already tireless tools of war, and on top of that, their power was boosted by 97%. Then, Rigoa gave his order directly. "Alright, you and I are about to watch a necromancer throw these goblins into total, absolute chaos. In just a few moments, all 20 goblins are now puppets under his absolute command. Having an undead army power level him is honestly broken. The surviving goblins are so terrified they just scatter in total panic. Then, a soft voice echoes from the shadows. Fire arrow, launch. A flaming arrow guts the fleeing goblin instantly. Rigoa doesn't even flinch, just calmly calling out, "Come out!" The group quickly swears they weren't following him, claiming it was just a chance encounter. But as Rigoa studies them, he realizes they look strangely familiar. It clicks. No wonder they looked so recognizable when he saw them outside the portal earlier. In his past life, these very people once took a contract to assassinate him. Standing there are the future legends known as the Twin Shadow Archers. He wonders if fighting them now would be a hassle. Rigoa just smirks. Right now, they're only at a weak, 1-star power level. He remembers them as a deadly sibling duo. Killing these future enemies right now seems like the smart move, doesn't it? But he tosses the idea aside. They don't actually have a grudge against him yet. In his past life, it was just business. Suddenly, the man speaks up, asking if these servants are his. Now pay attention, because Rigoa is hiding a legendary necromancer class that would absolutely shock the entire world right now. Rigoa simply nods. "You're right. These undead soldiers are all under my absolute command. Soloing this dungeon is convenient, but he still needs hands to gather all the dropped items. Dead goblins drop valuable crystals that sell for big money. Rigoa asks if they're down for a little partnership. The man freezes. What kind of deal? Rigoa explains he will handle every single enemy himself. You stay back and gather the monster crystals while I clear the path. As for the loot, we split it 80-20. After hearing the offer, the three of them start whispering, weighing their options carefully. They've never seen anyone control monsters, so they don't trust him. Rigoa can't believe such a simple deal is taking this long. If his undead could loot for him, he wouldn't need them. He'd leave them behind if he could. Finally, the man agrees but demands an even 50-50 split instead. There are 3 of us, so we won't get much otherwise. Rigoa just gives them a cold, calm look. 70-30 is my final offer. Take it or the deal is dead right now. Boss, are you sure about this? Look, the guy isn't trying to hurt us. If he wanted us dead, we'd be ghosts already. Working with him will likely pay out way better than going at it alone. A bit later, the man literally collapses, begging for a break. He's never had to loot this many crystals in his entire life. His hands are going numb. He expected a decent haul, but this is already way beyond his wildest imagination. You and I saw that coming, right? His power is completely rewriting everything they knew about hunters. Rigoa calmly tells them to stop daydreaming and keep looting. The man can only give a nervous, awkward laugh. Can we please just rest for a second? Rest if you want. Just don't stop collecting the loot. By now, they all realize the same thing. This guy is definitely not a normal human being. Their looting speed can't even begin to touch the rate at which Rigoa is slaughtering these monsters. He's basically cleared the entire area. Now, it's time to see just how much his stats have spiked. Only 3 hours in, and his attributes have already jumped by over 21.2 points. Now, his stats rival a level 4 player. The timing is finally perfect. It's time to kill the Lord. Rigoa heads deep into the woods, eventually finding the Lord on its throne, surrounded by glaring guards. The Lord growls, remarking that it's been a long time since a human was brave enough to challenge him. Rigoa just laughs. A lowly goblin actually thinks he's the king of this entire dungeon. The girl explains he's the boss here, a literal nightmare for any beginner player who crosses his path. Feeling the disrespect, the Lord roars for his head. Instantly, a massive swarm of goblins charges straight for Rigoa. Boss or not, he's just a trash-tier goblin to me. Servants, it's time to charge. On his command, the undead army lunges forward with terrifying speed. One servant is torn apart, leaving him outnumbered. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens next. All right, you and I see his servant count drop, but Rigoa just whispers his next move without skipping a beat. Rise, my servant. Just like that, the fresh corpse transforms into an undead soldier and stands back up. Everyone nearby is frozen in shock. They can't believe their own eyes. He actually reanimated a dead body into a mindless slave. Seeing the tide turn, the Goblin Lord finally stands up, ready to join the fray. It lifts its sinister skull staff and begins chanting a dark, low-pitched incantation. Suddenly, countless totems stab into the earth. This is Glory of Honor, a buff that drives the Goblin Horde into a frenzy. The monsters go feral, turning bloodthirsty and completely ignoring their own pain. Rigoa just laughs. Low-grade magic? Please. With a wave of his hand, every single totem on the ground explodes into dust. The Wizard Lord is furious. A human dares break my spells? Fine. I'll show you what true despair feels like. Now watch closely. The boss unleashes mass frenzy, using a staff fueled by the resentment of hundreds of souls. Every surviving goblin howls at the sky, as another system notification pings in Rigoa's ear. Their stats just shot up by 50%. Now tireless and fearless, the horde rushes in to tear Rigoa's undead army to shreds. The goblins are overwhelming. Eventually, even the undead servants get ground down by the sheer, endless numbers. Rigoa doesn't panic, he just looks mildly intrigued. So, this is your big final move then? Well, I guess it's my turn to show off. Your little trump card is a complete joke to me. A surge of dark energy pulses in his palm as he whispers a terrifying new command, Bone Control. The Lord Wizard's staff begins rattling violently, fighting to escape its master's grip. A second later, it rips itself free and rockets across the room. It flies straight into Rigoa's hand. The wizard screams in horror, asking what on earth he just did. Give it back. Rigoa just stays calm. Simple. Anything made of bone belongs to me now. Checking the weapon, he realizes the sheer amount of hatred inside is even worse than he expected. You sacrificed your own kind for this? Their resentment toward you is massive. Since it's yours, you can have it back. With a flick of his wrist, the skull staff shoots back toward its former master like a missile. The Wizard Lord freezes. It realizes the staff is completely ignoring its commands as it streaks through the air. The staff skewers the boss instantly. It's poetic, really dying at the hands of the very weapon it cherished above all else. The boss crashes to the dirt, dead. Rigoa just scoffs. What a pathetic excuse for a wizard. And just like that, the dungeon's wizard lord is history. You saw that coming, right? Rigoa is just on another level. But while his stats are soaring, his teammates have a massive problem. During the chaos, Rigoa had slaughtered so many goblins that the ground was buried in loot. Now, the other three are stuck doing the grueling work of gathering every single crystal. Back outside, they're the center of attention. The mountain of crystals on the man's back is literally hard to believe. Rigoa explains that these can be sold at a shop for quick cash right now. Or, we can haul them all to the central city for a much better price and cut out the middleman's greedy markup entirely, right? How much will we get? The man thinks for a second and estimates around 5 million. Meanwhile, Rigoa pulls the skull staff off his back. Apparently, the market value for this thing is 0. It's heavily cursed, making anyone nearby feel sick. Trying to sell this thing would be nearly impossible in any normal market. It boosts magic power, but it slowly rots the owner's mind. Plus, the equip requirement is strictly for the priest class. Normally, priests have 0 resistance to curses like this, but for Rigoa, this dark energy is absolutely harmless. He decides to keep the staff. He'll just pay the team their fair share once the crystals are finally sold. The leader quickly refuses. We've already made a whole year's salary in one day thanks to you. We really can't take more from you. The staff belongs to Rigoa. I don't think anyone here is going to argue with that. Rigoa appreciates how this guy handles business. Fine then. I'll accept. Let's get back to it tomorrow. The next day, back in the ancient garden dungeon, the teammates are already reaching their absolute limit. There are just too many drops. They don't even have the physical strength left to bag all this loot anymore. They brought 3 extra bags today, but they're already overflowing way faster than yesterday. Take the crystals back first, he says. You and I will see what happens next. You and I are about to see Rigoa pull a secret move so crazy he had to send everyone away. Kronos is baffled, but Rigoa says he has business no one else can witness. He dives deeper into the dungeon. This place, it's not just home to low-level goblins anymore. Different zones mean entirely different, more dangerous monsters. When a pack of frogmen lunges from the shadows, Rigoa sends his servants into a meat grinder. It's clear these frogmen have stats way higher than any goblin he's faced before. His servants start dropping fast under the frogmen assault, but since they can't feel pain, they keep pushing. A few frogmen actually fall in the chaos. Rigoa doesn't waste a second and prepares to summon the fresh corpses. A moment later, a massive pack of frogmen has become his loyal servants. With these new heavy hitters at his side, Rigoa feels way more confident. Deep inside, they find an ancient temple that looks like it hasn't seen life in centuries. Kronos is losing it, asking Rigoa what he's actually trying to do here. Rigoa just tells him he'll know soon enough. Then, he pulls out a glowing dark green heart. It belongs to a frogman. He then takes the blood of the wizard he killed earlier and carefully drips it onto the cold, green heart. In an instant, the entire heart starts shaking and trembling violently. The dead organ comes alive, beating like a drum. A system notification pings Rigoa has successfully triggered the deep secret of the ancient garden. The ancient trial ground is opening. Now, watch what happens next. In his previous life, Rigoa only learned about this secret by pure luck. Back then, his power rank was already way too high to ever set foot in this dungeon, so he is actually feeling pretty hyped to see what kind of special trial awaits him now. Within the light screen, a massive, dark purple claw steps out. Shock hits Rigoa's face. This is supposed to be a 1-star trial, so why is a high-level dragonkin standing there? The system tells him he has to survive for 10 minutes to get the reward. These trial grounds were built by the constellation gods to pick out the best agents. Seeing the beast, even Kronos can't help but speak up and worry. With Rigoa's current strength, 10 minutes is a pipe dream. Honestly, even 10 seconds might be too much for him. Kronos sighs, thinking he will be waiting hundreds of years for a new agent, but Rigoa stays completely calm. Rigoa remembers that in a 1-star dungeon, the dragon's strength should be suppressed to 1 star. But even a nerfed dragonkin is an absolute nightmare for a normal person to handle. All he needs to do is find a way to stall. He orders every servant to attack. Instantly, the dragonkin stomps the floor with heavy force and vanishes from sight in a blur. When it reappears, it's already standing right in front of him. The frogman servants charge in without a single second of hesitation, trying their best to block the Dragon King's path. They cling tightly to its shoulders and massive body, hoping to buy Rigoa some precious time to breathe and regroup. But the dragonkin only looks at them with pure contempt. It swings its right fist toward the frogman hanging from its shoulder. With just one punch, it kills a frogman on the spot. In less than a minute, every summon on its body is crushed. Rigoa isn't surprised. Honestly, you saw that coming, right? Check out that hint of excitement in his eyes. These frogmen naturally carry deadly toxins that become even more potent once they are transformed into servants. Even if the dragonkin can slaughter the summons quickly, once it is contaminated, its speed will be reduced significantly. After clearing the trash, the dragonkin charges at Rigoa, seeing him as the primary target. Rigoa raises his skull staff and pours mana into it, causing his defensive power to rise to the max. A glowing protective shield instantly appears right in front of him. But even with the skull staff's enhancement, completely blocking a dragon's attack is still extremely difficult. So, the moment the dragon strikes the protective shield, Rigoa detonates it directly. In the brief half-second where the beast finally freezes, Rigoa immediately controls his skull staff and combines it with bone control, sending a stabbing strike back at the dragon. But the skin of the Dragon King is just way too tough. Even though the staff strikes with terrifying speed, it only pierces the back of its hand as the dragon roars in pain. The frogmen around it lunge forward again, biting hard into its body to force the poison even deeper into its system. It works immediately. The dragon's movements slow down as its nerves go numb and its body stiffens. But as a member of the proud dragon race, its pride will never allow it to collapse in such a pathetic state. Trust me, you and I are about to see if Rigoa can survive this beast's final rage. The more it struggled, the faster the venom surged through its veins until the beast finally collapsed onto one knee. Alright, you and I are watching Rigoa breathe a sigh of relief as he casually recalls his bone staff. If this dungeon tier had been even a little higher, he definitely would not have handled it this easily. Rigoa walks right up to the fallen dragonkin, raises his hand, and speaks in a low, commanding voice. Life drain, activate. Suddenly, a system alert chime rings out time for our main character to collect his rewards. Rigoa has cleared the ancient trial ground. Reward obtained the Crown of Tenacity. Mental damage is now reduced by 40%. With boosted focus and mana circulation, this passive skill is exactly what he needs to reach the next level. From now on, even if he gets hit with crowd control, the duration will be cut down to almost nothing. Plus, a dragon corpse is priceless. Rigoa casually sweeps the body into his storage ring like it is nothing. Kronos asks what he plans to do with the remains. Rigoa just gives a calm, chilling reply. He plans to turn this dragon into the ultimate weapon, but he still needs the help of a master. Now watch as Rigoa heads to Ishiawa Prefecture to find exactly what he needs. Based on his past life memories, the man should be right here. Everything looks exactly as he remembers it. Even these rundown streets are the same. But then boom, a massive explosion rocks the entire area. Rigoa just smirks, some things never change. Now pay attention, because the man who will soon become a legend is about to emerge. The moment Rigoa spots him, a wide smile spreads across his face. It really is the guy he was looking for. This messy, soot-covered man is Sinia. In the future, he will be the top alchemist on the entire continent. Rigoa gets straight to the point, asking for his time. Sinia just frowns, wondering who this random stranger even is. I am Rigoa, and I am just here to borrow your alchemy equipment. This makes Sinia freeze in total shock. Borrow my tools? Why on earth would I do that? Rigoa talks like he already knows his every move. Do not be so stingy. Lend me your gear, and I will give you exactly what you need. You are stuck on a regeneration potion bottleneck, right? Sinia's face pales instantly. How could a stranger know his research? Rigoa does not explain a thing. He just tells the alchemist to relax because he is going to finish it. Moments later, Sinia stands there in total disbelief. The problem that haunted him for 6 months was solved in seconds. The potion is complete, Rigoa says. But I bet you are more interested in seeing if it actually works. He makes a small cut on his own hand, then pours the fresh potion directly onto the open wound. A soft, sizzling sound fills the air. Seconds later, the cut vanishes completely, as if it was never even there. Seeing this miracle, Sinia's eyes light up with pure excitement. Rigoa just gives him a knowing, confident smile. You know what he is doing, right? That formula is the ultimate leverage to ensure their brand new partnership works. I am not going to rob you. We will split the profits 60-40. It is a win for everyone involved. Take your time to think, Rigoa says, as he casually drops the massive dragon corpse right in the room. Even dead, the dragon's pressure is suffocating. Sinia is speechless, wondering what kind of monster he is looking at. I am a necromancer, and I am making a servant. If you are curious about this beast, come help me. Sinia snaps back that he has not agreed to anything yet. Why would he help a complete stranger? But his feet move anyway. He claims he is not helping, just satisfying his curiosity about such a rare creature. Kronos is confused by the alchemist's caution, but Rigoa knows it is because he was brutally betrayed before. In the past, Sinia made a huge discovery, only for his boss to steal the credit and ruin him. Rigoa looks at him. You are only hesitating because you doubt my skill, right? Well, let me prove it. Using this level 5 crystal, we need to hold the melting rate at exactly 42%. Then, we fuse it with necromancy and engrave the curse into the dragon. It is a complex, delicate process. Now we are only missing the core material, an ancient dragon heart. Rigoa calls his team for help finding the heart, and by the very next day, they are all waiting at the border front. Rigoa, the squad has been waiting for you. As they walk, the leader cannot help but ask a question. Why pick a death trap like the border? Since the dungeon collapsed, this whole area has been crawling with monsters. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss this reunion. Alright, you and I are following Rigoa's memories, but things are about to get bloody. Suddenly, a heavy footstep echoes. A massive orc wielding a spear lunges from the shadows, aiming for a lethal sneak attack. On the other side, Rigoa was already fully prepared. Before the orc could even throw its spear, a bone projectile he carried had already struck its massive body. Rigoa went for a kill shot, but this beast had surprisingly fast reflexes. It actually managed to avoid a fatal hit at the last second. Feeling the sharp pain, the orc viciously pulled the bone out of its chest. A second later, it let out a roar and charged Rigoa, desperate to tear him limb from limb. Rigoa's gaze sharpened as he whispered a single command: bone control. Undead power surged toward the giant orc. In the blink of an eye, the bones inside the creature's own body suddenly went out of control and pierced through it. Seeing this, the team leader stood there in absolute shock. Rigoa forced that orc to kill itself with its own ribs. Now, pay attention, his power is about to get truly terrifying. Next, we continue the hunt. Soon, the fallen orc was raised as a mindless servant through necromantic summoning. Rigoa's memories told him an orc fortress was nearby. That was his true target all along. After turning the ambusher into his new servant, Rigoa told the whole group that their next destination would be the orc fortress. The others felt a mix of hype and terror. Could they actually clear a whole fortress that smoothly? The group pushed toward the stronghold. Any orc that crossed their path was deleted by Rigoa without much effort. Night fell before they reached the gates. Rigoa decided they needed to stop and rest for the night. He turned around to find the tents already pitched. Rigoa couldn't help but smile. This was such a laid-back group. Late at night, Rigoa began seriously evaluating his current power levels. He was finally level 16, letting him unlock a new tier of necromantic magic. He projected his consciousness deep into the hidden knowledge space within the ring. Because of the system's strict restrictions, those high-level wizard spells were still completely unavailable to him. What he could access now were mostly basic spells he never would have cared about before. But after thinking it over, these low-tier spells were actually perfect for his current body. Back in his old life, Rigoa was a 7-star rank beast of a necromancer. He had never bothered with low-level spells in his past life. But as Rigoa studied them now, a system notification suddenly rang out. You have learned a new skill. You and I would be terrified too. Imagine waking up to find a group of massive orcs wrapped in bone armor staring you down. The leader jumped back, screaming. Rigoa just smiled and said these were his newly modified armored orcs. He called them armored orcs. This new skill allowed him to transform bones into thick armor, which he used to significantly strengthen their defenses. Since everyone's finally awake, it's time to head to the orc fortress. Soon, the fortress loomed ahead. It was even larger than Rigoa remembered. An orc sentry spotted them immediately and rang the alarm. Suddenly, a tide of orcs poured out of the fortress gates. Rigoa was surprised these orcs were so alert. Without missing a beat, he immediately activated his bone control skill. The bone weapons he'd prepared shot forward, propelled by dark energy like armor-piercing rounds. The lead orc was killed instantly. Rigoa muttered that he really hated noisy things like them. As he spoke, the orc chief emerged from the fortress and let out a sky-shaking roar. A swarm of orcs lined the walls, drawing their bows and aiming right at the group. The team leader stepped forward, activating his class-specific defense skill to tank the incoming barrage of arrows. He didn't expect these orcs to use military formations. The girl quickly unleashed a deadly, sweeping barrage of arrows from her crossbow. She targeted the charging group of orcs. Rigoa simply stood in place and watched the chaos with a faint, knowing smile. They really were the future duo known as the Twin Shadow Archers. But Rigoa didn't have any more time to waste. Rigoa commanded all of his armored servants to smash into the enemy lines. Undead and living orcs clashed in a chaotic, bloody battle. Rigoa knew his real task was to kill the orc chief himself. Sensing Rigoa walking toward him, the orc chief locked its eyes on its target. It raised its giant axe high and brought it down with earth-shattering force. Facing the incoming attack, Rigoa's expression didn't change at all. And that's where we leave it. You and I both know this orc chief is in some serious trouble. Alright, you and I are watching as bone spikes impale the orc chief, forcing out a pained, guttural growl. The orc chief grits its teeth and raises a hand, desperate to rip out the bone shards buried deep in its flesh. Rigoa knows he has to end this fast. If he doesn't kill the chief now, its berserk mode will make everything harder. The chief tries to fight back, but it is too late. Rigoa has already twisted the bones inside its body into a mess. Finally, the beast collapses. The fight looks simple enough, but honestly, Rigoa's body is already pushing past its absolute breaking point. In just that short exchange, more than half of his entire mana pool has been completely drained by the battle. Rigoa hits life drain, feeling his strength return instantly. But just as he recovers, the orcs behind him start letting out desperate cries. With their leader dead, The rest of the pack panics and starts running for their lives into the forest. To Rigoa, these aren't just monsters, they are walking experience points. There is no way he is letting a single one escape. It doesn't take long before every single fleeing orc is wiped out. The people watching him can barely believe their eyes. They did not expect the chief to go down so fast, or for the ground to be littered with so many crystals. But crystals aren't what Rigoa is after. His eyes are locked on that massive axe the chief dropped. That blood axe is the real prize. The stats on this thing are insane. The more blood it tastes, the stronger this legendary weapon becomes over time. Rigoa tosses the loot to the team and lets them handle it. He has something much more important on his mind right now. Stick with me here, because those orcs were just a warm-up. His real target is hidden deep inside that fortress tree. Rigoa stares at the withered tree and tells it to stop hiding and come out. But for a second, there is only silence. He lets out a cold laugh. Stop playing games. If you don't show yourself, I am burning this entire tree to the ground. Suddenly, the wood erupts with a terrifying aura. A dark shadow emerges from the trunk and asks in a low voice, "Who are you?" This was Rigoa's plan from the start, the whole reason he even bothered coming to this orc fortress in the first place. He came to find the figure inside the bark. Rigoa looks him in the eye and drops a bombshell about his real identity. Lee Baron, the legendary hero of the past. The shadow freezes. How do you know that name? Rigoa simply says he knows everything. He does not just know the name, he remembers every detail of what Baron did. Back in the capital, a massive monument still stands. It honors the names of heroes who gave their lives. You were one of the first to stand on the front lines when the disaster began. Hearing those words, a tiny flicker of relief finally shows in the dark, hollow eyes of the mysterious shadow. He never imagined anyone would still remember who he was, but Rigoa quickly cuts him off with a harsh, cold reality check. Don't get it twisted. Your name isn't on that monument anymore. The shadow's voice turns dead serious. What exactly do you mean? Rigoa asks if he remembers the name Neluhito. Suddenly, Lee Baron's thoughts are dragged back into his own painful memories. Back 35 years ago, he was facing a desperate situation he could barely withstand alone on the battlefield. He begged for reinforcements over and over. But every single time, the response was the same: no one else was coming to help. Silence fell over Lee Baron as the truth hit him. He had been abandoned and left behind as nothing more than bait. They knew the South Gate was a death trap, yet they lied and told him it was the only safe path to take. A mocking voice crackled over his radio. Thanks to you, we made it out through the North Gate without a single problem. Rage boiled in Baron's chest. You knew I would never leave the civilians at the South Gate to die. He shouted in fury. The reply on the pager was ice cold. Only the ones who actually survive are worthy of being called real heroes. Looking at the terrified families huddled around him, Lee Baron made a choice that would change his entire destiny forever. Get the civilians out of here. Run. I will hold this entire position by myself until the very end. His teammates were stunned, unable to move. But Lee Baron screamed at them again. That is a direct order. I know what you're thinking. How could anyone be that low? Neluhito, the man who killed you, is now a hero. Every single record of your existence was erased by him. Reality is pretty cruel and ironic, isn't it? You gave your life to protect people, only for a coward to steal your honor. The shadow's anger finally boils over. Why did you come looking for me? Rigoa just smiles. I can help you get revenge and make Neluhito pay the price. In exchange, you will sign a contract and serve me. To bring you back, I even brought the most suitable dragonkin vessel. As he speaks, Rigoa lays the body of a dragonkin out on the cold ground for the shadow to see. The shadow is paralyzed, unable to speak. Since he took this form, he never dared to dream that vengeance was actually possible. After a long silence, he agrees to serve unconditionally, and trust me, you and I are about to witness some serious payback. Stick with me, we're about to see a deal that changes everything. I refuse to harm a single innocent person, the shadow declares, catching Rigoa completely off guard. He never expected Lee Baron's resolve to stay this firm after all these years. So Rigoa simply accepts the deal. I promise I'll never use your power to hurt innocent civilians. Look, since we are settled, turn me into your servant, the shadow says, as the two officially form a soul contract. A system notification rings out. Authority over mortal spirit obtained. Back in his previous life, Rigoa had already trained this shadow into a truly legendary skeleton knight. He'd always wondered what could have happened if he had given him a top-tier body right from the start. Just how powerful could he have become? The shadow looks down, instinctively examining his brand new, superior form. His base stats are over 100, with multiple talents and several powerful skills. Rigoa checks the status panel, and trust me, even he is shocked by it. Swapping out an ancient dragon heart for a soul core produced results that were far beyond his wildest expectations. Best of all, his past life traits were fully inherited. As a magic warrior, he can now master both martial and magical arts. Any weird reactions to the body? Rigoa asks, as the shadow begins testing his range of motion. It's not at my peak yet, but at least this body has room to grow, he replies. Everything is set, so it's time to go. From now on, your name is Kashiwagi. But Kashiwagi suddenly stops him, asking if Rigoa really expects a proud warrior to follow him around looking like this. He rips a scrap of cloth from a nearby tent, declaring that even as a servant, he won't walk around bare. Now we're ready, he says, leaving Rigoa speechless at the Dragonkind's obsession with clothing details. They head back to the laboratory, where the alchemist Sinia is waiting with a look of pure shock. Now pay attention here. Sinia can't believe the dead Dragon King corpse she just saw is actually alive and walking. This is master-level alchemy, she says. But Rigoa just claims he got lucky finding a soul. Can I just beat this guy up? Kashiwagi mutters, while Sinia shamelessly pokes and prods his entire new body. Let him go, he's just a weak researcher, Rigoa sighs. Right as a different group approaches them. We're heading back to Central City to sell crystals. Hope we work together again soon. Once they're gone, Rigoa taps into his undead power to summon the massive Orc Chief corpse. This Orc Chief is an extremely rare material, and Rigoa already knows exactly how he wants to use it. He immediately activates his flesh separation skill, instantly stripping the massive Orc beast right down to its very white core. Seconds later, the giant chief is reduced to a clean, complete skeleton. He drips a special potion onto the bones, preparing to reinforce his new undead minion. The potion works perfectly, strengthening the bones just like Rigoa had planned for this massive upgrade. The chief is now a 2-star skeleton guard, providing vital protection for when Rigoa is at his most vulnerable using life drain. With this tanky guard by his side, he can finally cast his skills with total safety. Why a skeleton? Sinia asks, and Rigoa explains they are much easier for him to enhance and they never rot away like other minions. Plus, unlike normal summons, these guys have 0 time limit. He can protect me 24 hours a day. Sinia, keep an eye on things here while I handle some important business. I'm heading to the Pantheon to learn holy magic and bond deeper with my skeleton. Sinia just stands there, wondering if she's finally started losing her mind. A necromancer learning holy magic just to buff a skeleton? That is absolutely insane, she cries out. I'm a necromancer, sure, but deep down, I am actually a very devout priest, Rigoa claims with a straight face. Sinia goes silent, wondering when the world became a place where dark wizards believed in holy magic. Anyway, forget my faith. Did you ever apply for the patent on that regeneration potion of yours? She snaps back, confirming the application went in 2 days ago and approval is coming soon. But there's a catch, the big exhibition for promotion isn't happening until next year. You and I both know that's the only way to truly launch this potion, Rigoa says calmly. Alright, you and I are about to watch Rigoa make moves by taking several bottles of regeneration potion from Sinia. He promises to help promote the brew himself, knowing that if this works out, their money problems are gone forever. Looking at the way Rigoa was already plotting out their future, Sinia wonders if he is actually a priest who believes in holy magic, as the scene shifts toward the massive Pantheon. This place was a literal miracle that appeared right after the world went to hell. Hundreds of hunters swarmed the area to trade or hunt for new types of powerful holy magic. Most of them are looking for high-tier relics brought back from the depths of the dungeons. Rigoa takes a quick look around, but finds nothing with a holy aura, so he heads to the upper levels. The system already notified him that he can get a new skill, but now he has to climb all 108 steps. For a mage class like Rigoa, this climb is basically a death sentence. Rigoa asks Kronos how much further they have to go, but the old god just tells him not to rush. Turns out he is only halfway there. Rigoa looks totally defeated, but he has no choice but to keep moving. After all this sweat and effort, he just hopes the magic at the top is actually worth the climb. A short while later, Rigoa finally makes it to the very peak of the Pantheon. Trust me, you and I can see the massive constellations looking down from the dome as a new system notification suddenly flashes. Suddenly, the wealthy constellation shows him pure disgust. Notification: death has been concealed. Rigoa narrows his eyes. That constellation looks incredibly suspicious. Suddenly, another system notification pops up. The king of Abydos is officially displeased. Kronos just laughs, finding it funny that so many gods already hate the kid. But then Kronos speaks up. His own constellation has appeared, and it is time to bestow some real power. Since Kronos is technically a brand new constellation in this world, he has to scan the Pantheon for a bit before finding his spot and activating his bestowal power. System notification: the constellation of the Lord of the Gods has officially been registered to the roster. Right on cue, another set of system notifications starts rolling in. He just unlocked Evil Blessing and the Blade of Vengeance, giving him a massive boost to his stats and negative abilities. The Blade of Vengeance gains stacks every time he gets hit, which eventually explodes into massive retaliation damage when it is activated. Kronos proudly calls these his trump cards, but Rigoa just gives him a dry, unimpressed laugh. He tells the old man the skills are barely okay. Then, the system hits him with another update. His constellation lacks a holy aura, so he needs to find more believers to boost his status in heaven. Instead of being annoyed, Rigoa actually gets excited about the new challenge. Since he was a 9-star powerhouse in his previous life, gathering a few followers will be a total piece of cake. Rigoa finally leaves the temple, but the second he steps outside, a familiar voice calls him out. Stick with me, because as Rigoa leaves, a voice from his past calls out, though he has no idea who the guy is. The man freezes, his face turning sour as he realizes Rigoa actually forgot his name was Satak. Finally, it clicks. Rigoa remembers him as that pathetic little thug who used to shake people down at the cafe. He remembers beating Satak to a pulp and breaking his nose for trying to extort a coworker. It looks like his face healed up okay. Satak just glares back, his eyes burning with pure rage. He forces himself to calm down and points to his badge, claiming they are not even in the same league. He joined the Aragiri Guild and calls Rigoa a bottom-feeding worm who is not even worth his time. Rigoa just stays cool and tells him he is still the same weak little thug. Satak's face goes dark with rage. He claims the only reason he lost before was because he was caught off guard, then takes a swing. Before he can even finish talking, he throws a punch, but a hand suddenly snatches his wrist right out of the air. It is the team leader, Joman. He gives a cold warning about starting fights inside the city limits. Satak grinds his teeth and lies, telling his captain that Rigoa was insulting the entire Aragiri Guild. Joman looks Rigoa over and decides that since he is so brave, they should settle this in an official match. And trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens when these two finally face off. Rigoa mentioned he just saw him leaving the temple. He should be a total rookie who only recently became a hunter. Since you're begging for a match, I'll accept. Or what? Are you still shaking from the beating I gave you last time? Alright. You and I are about to watch this jerk get exactly what he deserves. Everyone soon arrived at the Aragiri Guild match arena. Rigoa said calmly that since he's a priest, he won't be the opponent. It'll be my contracted servant instead. Satak sneered, saying that for a priest, having any kind of summon is actually pretty impressive. Sure, but why summon such a weak-looking beast? Don't worry. Inside this formation, your life isn't in any danger. But I'm going to make you regret ever becoming my enemy. Before the fight even started, Satak was mocking Rigoa non-stop. His voice was filled with contempt, acting like he could win easily. Facing the barking of someone this pathetic, Rigoa had zero interest in giving him any kind of response at all. Kashiwagi slowly stepped forward. I didn't expect to run into the people from the Aragiri Guild this early in the game. Since this is my first fight after gaining a body, I'll use you to get used to it. Rigoa, this opponent is from an enemy guild, so I don't have to hold back, do I? Rigoa spoke calmly. I'd love to let you vent, but try not to end it too fast. There's something I want to test. Kashiwagi sounded helpless. Rigoa, you're making this difficult. Asking a human to go easy on a mosquito is basically impossible. Now pay attention here because what happens next is absolutely insane. Facing Satak's attack, Kashiwagi simply leaped into the air, raised his fist, and prepared to strike the arrogant hunter down. But since he wasn't used to his new body, Satak actually managed to dodge the initial punch by sidestepping. Satak seized the chance, crouching quickly and thrusting his spear toward Kashiwagi's side from a very tricky angle. Seeing this, the team leader smiled. His footwork is even faster than it was during our training sessions. But a second later, the spear Satak thrust out was caught in Kashiwagi's bare hand. He spoke with a cold voice. Did you really think an attack that slow would work? By attacking from the side, you left yourself completely undefended. Satak tried to yank his spear back in retreat, but no matter how hard he pulled, the weapon wouldn't move at all. You should be grateful this is just training. If this were a real fight, you'd already be a dead man. Kashiwagi raised his fist to smash him, but then he remembered that Rigoa had specifically told him to hold back. So, the strike that was about to land turned into a knife-hand blow, hitting Satak with only 30% of his total strength. Even though he used less than half of his power, it was still enough to make Satak feel a bone-deep agony. You and I both saw that coming, right? But Satak doesn't know when to quit, and he's stubbornly dragging this out. Satak grit his teeth and forced himself back up. Who says the match is over? I can still stand. I haven't admitted defeat yet. Kashiwagi looked at Rigoa. Since he hasn't surrendered, the fight isn't over. Right then, Satak raised his spear again and charged forward at high speed. But that speed was a joke to Kashiwagi. He simply stomped the ground, shattering the stone floor beneath him. Satak's body completely lost its balance. Kashiwagi said coldly that he was just a beginner with zero combat experience. Your movements are far too simple. Looking at the off-balance Satak, Kashiwagi delivered a light kick toward his knee. In the very next second, Satak's knee snapped instantly. Kashiwagi used less than 10% strength this time. Then, he raised his hand again. This time, it really ends. The strike wasn't even that fast, but Satak was so terrified that he couldn't even manage to speak. He closed his eyes to accept his fate. but Kashiwagi stopped the attack at the very last moment. The leader's expression turned ugly. He hadn't expected such a total defeat. Simultaneously, the system announced the match was finally over. The team leader immediately stepped forward to check on the injury. "Your leg is shattered. I'll go find a priest right now." Rigoa walked over. "Aren't I a priest?" The leader frowned. "I know you're a priest, but his bones are crushed. A 1-star priest can't possibly heal this, unless you have another way." Rigoa smiled faintly. "As it happens, I'm carrying some regeneration potions with me." The leader froze. "I've never even heard of something called a regeneration potion. Even if they exist, a bottle should cost millions." Rigoa replied calmly that of course he hadn't heard of it. "It hasn't officially launched yet. I'm just being kind. And trust me, you and I aren't ready for what comes next. Stick with me, we are watching a medical miracle turn into a trap. Delay treatment, and he is in a wheelchair forever." Then Rigoa pours it out. A smug little victory smile creeps onto his face. He honestly did not expect to find such a perfect chance to promote his gear. The moment that liquid hits the wound, Satak's shattered knee starts knitting back together right before their eyes. The team leader cannot even believe what he is seeing. In just a few seconds, even the broken bones have completely healed. A potion like this is basically an extra life. The leader immediately demands to know exactly where he got his hands on it. Hearing that, a sharp smile curls on Rigoa's lips. He knows this guy is already biting the hook. "You are a squad captain from the Aragiri Guild. Your strength should be sitting around 3-star rank, right? If you really want to know the source of this potion, then you've got to fight my summon." The captain's face dropped. "You won the last match and that is still not enough? Fine, I accept. But you better tell me everything once this is over." Rigoa just gives a faint smile. "Of course. Besides, that last fight ended way too quickly for my taste. Now, pay attention, because this is where the summon really shows his teeth." Kashiwagi loosens his body and takes up his stance again. The second the match starts, the squad captain lunges forward with explosive speed that would blur most people's vision. The sword in his hand becomes a flash of cold steel as he strikes at Kashiwagi without a hint of mercy. But when they clash, the captain feels a surge of shock. His swordsmanship is famous for speed, yet he is getting blocked. This dragonkin in front of him is not just seeing every strike, he is parrying each attack with perfect precision. Still, under the captain's relentless pressure, Kashiwagi's defense slowly starts to buckle and get pushed back. Sensing the shift in tempo, Kashiwagi prepares to counter. He stomps the ground hard, trying to blow the captain off balance. But at that exact heartbeat, the captain leaps into the air and cleanly avoids the tremor. Meanwhile, Rigoa keeps his eyes glued to the battle, studying every move. Everything is playing out exactly as he planned. For Kashiwagi, this dragonkin body is still too heavy. Against a high-speed opponent, he is struggling to adapt perfectly. Even so, with all his combat experience, Kashiwagi can still read the captain's attack patterns like an open book. And little by little, Kashiwagi himself starts to feel a surge of excitement. This is the perfect chance to master his new form through a real life or death struggle. Rigoa speaks up softly. "Kashiwagi, I'm satisfied with your performance so far, but I'm your summoner. I won't just stand here and watch you lose." In the next second, evil blessing surges over Kashiwagi's body, sharply boosting his senses, speed, and raw power all at once. The moment evil blessing activates, Kashiwagi's stats spike by nearly 70% in a single heartbeat, while the squad captain, just by being near that dark aura, feels his own power suppressed by 30%. Even Rigoa is caught off guard by how broken this effect is. That power from the Lord of the Gods is absolutely terrifying. If this skill ever reaches the higher tiers, just imagining its full potential is enough to make your skin crawl. Kronos immediately starts acting smug about it. "Well, brat, are you feeling the greatness of my power now? Go on, worship me." Rigoa just gives a calm smile. "Stick with me, because this is where our main character stops playing around. Let me finish this fight first." Then Rigoa activates Blade of Vengeance. Both Evil Blessing and the Blade buff stack on Kashiwagi at the exact same time. Rigoa smiles and tells him to fight however he wants. "You are not human anymore, so stop fighting like one." Seeing this, the squad captain still tries to win with pure speed. His sword strikes rain down on Kashiwagi like a storm, while the system notifications keep ringing out, warning that the damage has been stacked to the limit. Even with his stats reduced, he is still a 3-star guild member. Beating a 1-star dragonkin should be easy. Yet, against the captain's relentless offense, Kashiwagi just keeps his guard up and waits for the right moment. Suddenly, Kashiwagi realizes the truth. He is not a human being anymore. Since this body will not die easily no matter how badly it is hurt, there is no reason to fight like a mortal. He needs to seize the chance, drop his defense entirely, force his way in, and drag the enemy into a brawl. After all, his biggest advantages now are this indestructible body and his terrifying, monstrous strength. The captain never expected Kashiwagi to just drop his guard and charge. Even though his sword hits, Kashiwagi does not even slow down. In the blink of an eye, the distance disappears. You and I just saw a complete power shift. Kashiwagi blasts him away with one punch, deleting 52% of his health. Alright, you and I are about to see if a one-star summon can really be this broken. Letting that dragonkin stay in close combat was a death sentence. Suddenly, the squad captain spotted a major opening. He funneled every bit of power into his ankles, exploding forward with insane speed, charging directly at Rigoa. Attacking the summon itself was pointless. To win this, he only needed to take out the summoner. One hit on this priest and the match was over. The captain gritted his teeth. Don't blame me for this. He'd planned to crush the summon first, but now the priest was the target. Yet, as the blade swung toward Rigoa, he didn't even move an inch. Rigoa just smiled calmly. You really are an idiot. Did you think I wouldn't plan for such an obvious weakness? Rigoa snapped his fingers. Time for the blade of vengeance to activate. Now pay attention, because every attack Kashiwagi took just turned into blades of retaliation and shot right back at the captain. A system notification rang out as Joman's health hit 0. Just like that, the match was over. Back at the Argery Guild, the higher-ups were stunned. A mass-produced regeneration potion that rivaled high-grade items? The man speaking was none other than the guild's second-in-command. Joan nodded. It's true, Vice Guildmaster. I saw the power of that regeneration potion with my own eyes. I've never heard of a development method like that. The Vice Guildmaster's frown deepened. Are you sure you weren't played? Joan's voice was low. I saw the truth with my own eyes. The second that potion hit him, even shattered bones started healing instantly. The Vice Guildmaster went cold. Forget the potion for now. You're a 3-star hunter of this guild. Yet, you somehow lost to a lowly 1-star summon? Do you realize how much you've disgraced us? And I heard you just dropped the guild's name and ran after you lost. You saved your own skin, but dragged the guild's reputation through the mud. As of today, you're demoted to an ordinary member. Once Joan left, the master turned to his secretary. Dig into that regeneration potion. I want to know exactly where it's coming from. Besides, no 1-star priest should be beating a 3-star swordsman unless he's holding some kind of divine-grade summoning skill. He just couldn't wrap his head around how a priest could command such a massive power. You and I both know Rigoa is planning something big here, waiting for news of his potion to reach the very top. Right then, Kashiwagi spoke up. There is something I am curious about. Why did you make me study these spear skill books right after the fight? Rigoa answered with total calm. You're a versatile warrior, so your training needs to be more complete. Kashiwagi nodded. So that's the plan. But I still like using my fists better, Rigoa continued. If you master weapons, your style won't be so predictable. Kashiwagi just laughed. Fists against flesh. That's the only way a real man should fight. In response, Rigoa used a bit of necromancy. Kashiwagi's eyes widened in total shock. Why is my arm moving by itself? Rigoa, you shameless bastard, you're literally controlling me just to make me study? Rigoa stayed calm. If we're training with spears, then as your master, I need to master them as well. After grabbing the skill book, Rigoa didn't even blink. It was just the most basic spear technique available. As long as you understand the basics, even a child could master this. More importantly, as a regressor, Rigoa only needed an instant to learn it all. Suddenly, the book dissolved into pure knowledge, flooding straight into his mind. Kashiwagi grinned. Since you've learned the spear, let's have a real training session, master. Kashiwagi lunged forward, his strike landing right where Rigoa stood a second ago. Rigoa jumped back instinctively, realizing that attack came way too fast for comfort. Kashiwagi looked confident. You're the one who wanted to test my spear skills. Why are you dodging so fast? Rigoa just sighed. You're definitely holding a grudge because I beat you earlier, aren't you? Kashiwagi just put on a smug face. Me? How could I ever be that petty? Then, his expression suddenly turned deadly serious. In a real fight, you have to strike with absolute killing intent. Didn't I tell you? I was a master of the spear in my past life. I'm a versatile warrior, so let me show you what a real attack looks like. As he finished his sentence, Kashiwagi charged. Rigoa didn't even bat an eye. He'd already mastered the spear basics. And trust me, you and I are about to see him teach Kashiwagi a real lesson. Alright, you and I are watching as Kashiwagi's spear lunges straight for Rigoa's chest. Rigoa raises his spear to block, feeling smug. He is already planning his counterattack once this strike lands. But the moment they clash, the spear tip suddenly flickers upward. Rigoa's pupils shrink, his face twisting in total disbelief. Did you really think you had mastered spear techniques already? Kashiwagi asks coldly. Did you think one block meant safety? Until the fight is actually decided, you cannot afford to let your guard down for even a single second. Rigoa frowns. I definitely blocked that strike. So how did he still manage to hit me? Kashiwagi explains that because Rigoa shifted his focus to the counterattack too early, he completely ignored the threat of a follow-up second strike. Rigoa refuses to accept it. grumbling that he only lost because Kashiwagi's stats are way higher than his own. Kashiwagi looks at the stubborn brat and sighs. Fine, I will drop my stats to match yours exactly. Rigoa snaps back, claiming that at the same level, there is no way that second strike will land again. He steps forward to defend, his mind looping over and over that as long as he blocks the second strike, he can finally counterattack. Watch this, because in the next instant, his entire world goes black. Rigoa wakes up flat on the ground. Kashiwagi looks down, telling him he was so worried about blocking the second strike that he missed the first. He failed to even defend the very first move of the exchange. Rigoa realizes that since his rebirth, he has grown way too soft and relaxed. This beating was the perfect wake-up call to shatter that lazy mindset once and for all. Kashiwagi grins at Rigoa's burning fighting spirit, promising to stay with him until the very end. Later, at a barbecue joint, the captain asks what happened. Rigoa has absolutely zero desire to talk. For 3 whole hours, he had been a human punching bag for Kashiwagi. That guy definitely did it on purpose, and he was clearly enjoying the beatdown. From inside his body, Kashiwagi smugly notes there are not many chances to beat him up this reasonably. Rigoa ignores the jab and asks why they all needed to meet so suddenly. Well, let's pivot to the massive news that is currently blowing up across the entire Hunter network. The Forgotten Temple is finally opening to everyone. This news even catches Rigoa off guard. That dungeon still has not been cleared yet. The Frost Guild has held ownership for a full year, but even after constant raiding, they have not been able to clear the final floor. The captain explains that dungeons are split into 2 types, known as static gates and dynamic gates. Once mana density in a dynamic gate hits 100%, the monsters inside will invade our world. Static gates just spawn monsters on a loop. Rigoa nods in agreement. The Frost Guild messed up the subjugation, so the temple's density is about to explode past that danger zone. Now they are forced to open the temple to everyone. Suddenly, a memory flashes through Rigoa's mind. In his past life, the Phoenix Guild secured a legendary piece of dragon-scale armor. That armor came from this temple. Since it has not been cleared yet, he still has a golden chance to swoop in and steal that gear first. The rumors say this armor holds the literal power of a dragon. The captain stares at Rigoa, wondering why his eyes suddenly look so incredibly cunning and devious. Gather the team for me. Tomorrow, we head straight into the Forgotten Temple. The next day, the dungeon's mana density has already hit 93%. All the major guilds have sent their logistics teams to take their positions. One member looks worried. Captain, this looks like a brutal competition. So many guilds showed up, and we only brought 5 days of rations. Are we going to be okay? The captain isn't worried. They will be operating inside the dungeon the whole time, so this should end quickly. Suddenly, a teammate points out Ashaka, the legendary Sword Saint candidate. Rigoa's ears perk up. Ashaka was the one who actually claimed the dragon-scale armor in his previous life. She was known as the most talented genius in the entire Phoenix Guild history, but she died before reaching her peak. Just then, the captain shouts to look east. That is Iron Fist. He is a famous powerhouse across this whole region, and trust me, you and I are about to see if he can claim that dragon armor before anyone else. Stick with me, because we are about to find out if this squad can actually clear this legendary Forgotten Temple. The interior was crawling with danger, so Rigoa wasted no time summoning Kashiwagi for backup. Watching him, the girl whispered nervously. Since all his skills are undead types, she worried he might turn them into servants too. Rigoa suddenly materialized behind them. Relax. I am not the type of person who turns people into servants without a reason. You guys are too weak. You definitely are not servant material, and since we are partners, I have no reason to attack my own allies. Suddenly, the temple began shaking violently. This was the legendary moving dungeon from the rumors. It was officially ranked as a 2-star, but its random daily shifts pushed the actual difficulty closer to 3 stars. Just like in his past life, the layout shifted unpredictably, and the monsters inside would randomly transform along with the rooms. Now watch this. Rigoa sends his scout ahead and immediately stacks his Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance buffs. As the group pushed deeper into the temple's core, Kashiwagi suddenly came to a dead halt. A sorcerer in white robes emerged, dripping with a heavy aura of death. According to their gathered intel, this was a dangerous fallen wizard. Before the team could even devise a solid strategy, the fallen wizard lunged straight at them. Kashiwagi didn't flinch, stepping forward to meet the enemy head-on with raw power. Since it was a mage type while alive, the wizard was completely outclassed in close quarters by a powerhouse like Kashiwagi. He snapped its fingers instantly, slamming the wizard into the floor. In a matter of seconds, he easily crushed its skull into pieces. The captain was in total shock. He couldn't believe a fallen wizard had been completely overwhelmed and destroyed just like that. Kashiwagi just looked bored, complaining that the fallen wizard was way too weak. Rigoa stayed calm, noting that dragonkin are naturally strong, so this level of domination was actually quite normal. But since the head was crushed, his necromancy wouldn't work on it anymore. Kashiwagi didn't seem to care at all, though. It is nothing to worry about. Look around. Aren't there still plenty of other fallen wizards here to harvest? Rigoa asked. Let's see how Rigoa handles this. He steps up and activates his bone control skill. In a flash, dozens of bones shot toward the wizards like a barrage of hidden projectile weapons. Every strike landed with pinpoint precision, hitting their bodies without missing by even an inch. Bones wrapped in dark energy drilled deep into the wizards. These mage-type monsters already had very low resistance to elemental skills. By disguising holy magic as dark energy and injecting it, Rigoa could force their movements to slow down to a crawl. Charging at the front, Kashiwagi was surprised to see the wizard's speed suddenly drop for no apparent reason. In less than 1 minute, several of the fallen wizards were completely defeated. Kashiwagi looked back, boasting that he carefully avoided their heads this time. Just then, the remaining wizards were all finally taken down. A loud system notification rang in Rigoa's mind. 2 new skills obtained, Dark Sage and Dark Dominion. Mana consumption for undead summons reduced by 20%. This meant Rigoa could fight for much longer. In the next instant, the fallen wizards were reanimated and transformed into his loyal undead servants. As soon as the transformation finished, the servants instinctively hunted for enemies and charged back into battle. The team joined in while Kashiwagi clashed once again with the endless, surrounding wizards. However, the situation made Rigoa frown slightly. Why were these wizards appearing endlessly? While he was thinking, the entire ground began to shake violently once again. A teammate shouted that they needed to leave quickly, because the dungeon structure was about to shift once more. Rigoa did not order a retreat just yet. Instead, he suddenly remembered a key detail from his previous life. Ashaka had once done a media interview where the reporter asked her how she was the first to clear this temple. Everyone is curious, Miss Ashaka, how did you manage to open the final gate? Ashaka explained that while normal gates open after bosses fall, the final boss gate requires a very specific method to unlock. No matter how much the temple changes, there are only 3 types of rooms. By defeating 3 types of monsters in a specific cycle, you can collect 3 different badges. Once you gather 49 badges and place them correctly, you can enter the boss area immediately. You and I are about to witness the moment things get serious. As a blood-red demon eye slowly appears, the real challenge begins. Alright, you and I are jumping right into a dungeon crawl where one wrong move means game over. That demon eye, once just a ghostly illusion, suddenly manifests into a physical nightmare. A weird light flickers deep inside before beams shoot out like arrows, tearing through the air with a terrifying roar. But Rigoa? He was ready for this. With a slight flick of his wrists, 5 bone projectiles appear out of thin air, floating before him. Wrapped in pure undead energy, they instantly snap together to form a massive bone shield. Powerful beams slam into the barrier, but no matter how hard they hit, the bone doesn't even crack. Rigoa brushes off the assault like it's nothing. See, these aren't just any old bones. He's carved undead runes into them, pushing their durability to a level that's honestly terrifying. Now watch this, because the timing of what happens next is absolutely insane. The gap between attacks was less than 0.2 seconds. But before it can land, Kashiwagi teleports right in front of him. I'm your guard, so just stay safely behind me. You probably could have dodged, but this is my job. As he speaks, the energy blast slams directly into Kashiwagi. The huge explosion completely swallows his body, but he realizes the force is weaker than expected. When the dust clears, he's perfectly fine. Rigoa isn't surprised. He poured massive effort into crafting this specific dragon body. A mere 2-star dungeon monster could never break his defenses. Kashiwagi just nods, realizing Rigoa was right. I didn't feel a thing. It looks like we don't even need to be careful around this demon eye. I'll just crush it. In a flash, Kashiwagi lunges forward and hammers his fist into the eye. These attacks might scare normal hunters, but they are completely useless against a beast like me. Need a new servant? Rigoa shakes his head. We just need the item to reach the final stage. Soon after, they find a new enemy. To open the gate, they need a smiling face mask, and that item is held by the masked freak standing right there. Kashiwagi looks at the monster with pure disgust, calling it seriously ugly. But the moment he speaks, the creature lets out a piercing roar. As the sound dies down, a dark red curse surges forward, wrapping around Kashiwagi. A notification rings out. The mimic's curse is actually stripping away Kashiwagi's attributes. Rigoa asks if he needs help, but watch closely, Kashiwagi is not worried at all. This mimic uses dark magic, but necromancy is the peak of that system. I'll handle this with my own power. Suddenly, a notification pops up. Curse broken. Even Rigoa looks a little surprised by that. Necromancy is top tier, but seeing Kashiwagi shatter a curse using his own undead aura was unexpected. Still, Rigoa triggers Evil Blessing. I would love to let you take your time fighting this mimic, but we are on a strict clock. Instantly, the curse is wiped away. Then, Rigoa raises his hand and activates bone control. In a heartbeat, the mask mimic is crushed on the spot. Rigoa looks at the loot. The mask is exactly what he needs, so he grabs it immediately. It's an essential item for the boss stage, but the thing looks hideous. Now they just need the horn, eye, and mask. They need to gather 49 of these items in total. Still, Rigoa wonders how Ashaka knew all this in her past life. Her old report was very specific, not a single item could be damaged. One broken piece and the boss stage stays locked forever. No room for error. Judging by the facts, Ashaka is definitely hiding some massive secrets from them. Suddenly, the captain spots the Phoenix Guild nearby. Rigoa looks back. They're moving fast. Mask mimics are swarming Ashaka's team, but there isn't a single trace of fear in her eyes. Even better, those nasty attribute-lowering curses don't seem to affect her at all. She clears them out in seconds. Kronos just chuckles. She's coating her blade in spiritual power to cut the curses. Rigoa tells his team to hurry. As Ashaka watches them, her team is left confused. You and I both know this rivalry is just beginning. Alright, you and I are about to see if Ashaka is right about these guys dispelling curses. Captain, you're overthinking it. They probably just got lucky and avoided the curse entirely. Even so, Ashaka couldn't shake it. This Rigoa guy gave off a vibe that was both powerful and mysterious. Finally, the boss requirements were met. It took 5 grueling days deep inside the Forgotten Temple to get here. Even Rigoa himself didn't expect a literal endless flood of monsters for 5 straight days. The captain was starting to sweat. This whole situation had spiraled way past everyone's wildest expectations. Suddenly, a team member froze. In the distance, another fallen wizard was slowly creeping toward the group. Kashiwagi just stepped up and threw another punch. Honestly, these things just never seem to stop. The new wizard was dropped instantly. Just another day at the office. Kronos couldn't help but sigh. 5 days in and you aren't even tired. I definitely chose the right guy, Rigoa said calmly. Look, I'm a necromancer. I just let my servants do the fighting. Plus, every kill lets me absorb even more of their power. Rigoa didn't even need sleep. After 5 days of non-stop grinding, his power surged, and he finally reached level 27. Once the dust settled, Rigoa gathered up every single drop. He slotted the items into place, one by one. Slowly, the ancient stone pillars began to glow again. 48 pillars were now active. Most of the other raid teams had already bailed on the dungeon. He turned to the squad. The loot from these past few days is actually pretty decent. Go ahead and sell the crystals. I'm staying a bit longer. The captain just nodded. We'll do it your way, Rigoa. A few minutes later, he led his servants into the next chamber. Suddenly, the floor buckled. Kashiwagi frowned. These tremors are happening way more often now. Should we leave too? Rigoa just shook his head calmly. I sent them away so just we could finish this. 5 days of non-stop combat, and we still haven't even seen the boss. Wondering why I'm using those materials on the pillars. That's the only way to summon the boss. Once we find the pillar with the 3 patterns and drop the last materials, it's go time. The ritual will finally be complete. Now pay attention here, the entire dungeon is starting to shift and collapse right around them. Random projectiles started flying at Rigoa, forcing him to dance around just to stay alive. While dodging, Rigoa scanned the room, desperately looking for that final pillar. He had to move. The walls were literally crumbling around him. Then, Kashiwagi suddenly shouted that he had found it. Rigoa looked over. The last pillar was all the way on the opposite side of the room. To reach it, they'd have to find a path through all this chaos. Kashiwagi yelled for the materials. Without missing a single beat, Rigoa tossed them straight over to him. Kashiwagi tanked every hit and charged straight for the pillar. He confirmed it was the last one. That's it, Rigoa shouted as he slammed the materials onto the base. Suddenly, the pillar flashed with a faint glow. Every single attack that had been flying at them stopped dead in its tracks. Then, mana started pulsing out from the stone, refracting wildly. A massive magic circle appeared as a hidden door quietly emerged. I didn't think a 2-star dungeon would be this complex, Rigoa muttered. Kashiwagi. Stay sharp. The real battle starts right now. Kashiwagi just grinned. Relax, Rigoa. I'm a summon. I don't get tired. Let's pause. Rigoa is getting a really bad feeling from this door, and trust me, his instincts are usually right. He slowly pushed the door open, his heart pounding in his chest. What kind of monster was waiting for him on the other side? The very second that door cracked open, the boss was already right there, staring him down. A blast shot out instantly. Kashiwagi reacted in a heartbeat, leaping right in front of Rigoa to protect him. He channeled undead energy into his fist and punched with all his might, shattering the attack into 1,000 pieces. But the monster wasn't done. A curse hit Rigoa, making his vision blur and his head spin. It felt like he was about to be swallowed whole by the darkness. And that's where we leave it. Rigoa isn't answering, and you and I both know that's not good. Let's dive into this. Rigoa walks forward slowly as the monster grins victoriously, preparing a final strike to kill him completely. But he doesn't even look worried. Watch closely. Rigoa speaks, and his voice is chillingly soft. You think this little curse can control me? I am immune to them all, and trust me, your curse is nothing but a